In the first chapter, The Deal, we find ourselves in the expansive crystalline halls of Baron Tyro's estate. The planet is known for its wealth and brutal aristocracy, and the Baron, a towering figure with shimmering blue skin and molten gold eyes, lounges on his obsidian throne with a grin that could terrify anyone. Standing before him is Elias Carter, a human scientist and medic who is famous for his revolutionary work in alien genetics and rehabilitation. Decay sat before a long table. Carter, meanwhile, is easily recognizable by his disheveled brown hair and heavily worn utility pants, while Archibald Hex's is unmatchable. Tyro raised a hand to silence him, laughing darkly and asking why he should waste his time and money on a facility that doesn't cater to any particular species. Elias nodded in agreement, seemingly unaffected by the sarcasm, but Tyro couldn't help but draw a sharp line in his voice to mock Elias's idea of a universal rehabilitation center which would help people of all walks of life recover from injuries and regain mobility. The assembled nobility chortled, their iridescent robes reflecting the light as they reveled in their master's contempt. Elias, who had clenched his fists, maintained his composure and responded, "It's not about usefulness. It's about giving people a second chance." The Baron's smirk deepened. "You say that you are noble," he said, leaning forward, his golden eyes glinting. "I will wish you luck in your new work, but with one condition." Elias's heart skipped a beat as he stayed on his toes, but when the enormous doors at the end of the hall creaked open, two guards pushed a shaky chair carrying a pale, vulnerable figure shrouded in darkness into the room. Suddenly, everyone went silent as the figure was brought before the Baron's throne. "This is my daughter, Lien Tyro," the Baron announced, his voice betraying his disdain. He scowled at the chair, ignoring the woman's expression. Tyro, who was wounded in a tragic skirmish, continued to figure in shame as the crowd mumbled under their breath in the amusement park. Lien's hands clenched on the chair armrests, and Tyro leaned back, his smug face returning. "I will fund your project if you take this," he said, his words carrying an air of arrogance. Elias couldn't help but notice the sleek metal braces attached to her legs, which were a clear sign of the advanced but primitive grand technology meant to support mobility. With a tightening of his jaw, Elias glanced at Lien, whose head remained bowed. He saw through the mask of her father's brutality. Her posture betrayed no defeat, but rather anger and shame. And Elias felt a surge of rebellion on her behalf. "I will take her," he said firmly, "but when she walks again, you will see how wrong you were." The room burst into laughter, but Tyr's expression became menacing, ruining his amusement. Elias sat across from her, reviewing the medical scans he had taken earlier. He hesitated before speaking, his voice filled with concern. "Your spinal injury is severe." Lien remained silently staring out the viewport of her hovering chair, her veil gone, her features sharp and delicate, framed by silvery hair. Her pale blue skin, marked by faint scars, glowed softly under the ship's lights. "Although it may have been forced upon you by your father," Elias met Lien's unwavering gaze and asked, "Do you deserve a chance to heal?" Lien abruptly cut him off, her voice cold and sharp. Elias leaned back in his chair, sighed, and continued, "You've been through hell, I get that. But this isn't about him. It's about you." Lien was not broken, but she had been abandoned. This place, the Universal Rehabilitation Center, URC, was an engineering marvel that accommodated beings from dozens of species. Upon arrival, the staff noticed that Lien's expression had softened, but it soon reverted back to the walls she had built up over years of rejection. The URC's state-of-the-art labs and therapy rooms were stocked by Elias himself, to warmly embrace Elias, but their curiosity in Lyon was obvious. A Groen noble, much less one in her state, was something most of them had never encountered. Elias showed Liane around the facilities as she proudly disregarded the stairs. Following her directions, Elias led her to a private apartment that included individualized medical equipment and a therapeutic pool. After we conduct brain mapping to find out how bad it is, we'll dash it. You don't have to describe every step, Liane replied, her voice betraying none of the venom she had previously shown. Listen, Elias understood that this was just the beginning of a long road ahead. The initial stages of Liane's treatment involved painful neural mapping, which revealed severe damage to her spinal cord. Despite this, Elias remained optimistic that a blend of human neural graphs and advanced Groen biotech could restore her functionality. The process was taxing on both her body and mind, and Liane was understandably wary of putting her trust in anyone or anything. Eventually, she demanded that Elias adjust. Despite her initial reluctance, Liane started to feel the effects of the neural graphs, which caused a dull ache in her legs, and the regular hydrotherapy sessions helped her regain strength. Elias, on the other hand, was patient and encouraging, quietly celebrating each milestone as Liane made progress. He never pushed her too hard or diminished her efforts. Instead, he let her enjoy the fruits of her labor. He started to seem less like an enemy and more like an ally. One night, while Liane was practicing moving her toenails, she glanced over at Elias, who was reviewing data on a nearby terminal. She whispered something like, "You're not like most humans." Elias looked surprised and looked up. Liane smirked slightly and said, "Don't let that go to your head." It was a small moment, but it marked a turning point in their relationship. In the sterile, brightly lit halls of the Universal Rehabilitation Center, Lee and Tyro faced new emotional and physical challenges every day as they worked with Dr. Elias Carter to regain control of their bodies. The medical staff hurried to help the patients, and the hum of advanced technology pushed the limits of what was possible. However, for Liane, the real battle wasn't only in the therapy sessions. It was within herself. In the therapy pool, Liane sat with her leg in the warm, mineral-rich water, hoping that her toes would move. Neural stimulators hummed gently, sending gentle pulses to her lower spine. "Just focus," Elias said, kneeling beside the pool. His voice was steady and calm, but his eyes were sharp, analyzing every muscle response. "I'm focusing," Liane snapped, her frustration bubbling over. "It's not like I'm holding you," Elias responded. "You're closer than you think. Try again." Liane clenched her teeth and stared intently into her reflection in the water. Her toes twitched slightly, barely noticeable, but it was enough to catch Elias's attention. Liane blinked, looking at her foot in disbelief. "I moved it. You did it," Elias said, his voice filled with quiet pride. "Tomorrow, you'll move it again." For the first time, Liane felt a glimmer of hope. Her focus shifted from proving her father wrong to... At one point during their review of Liane's progress in the facility's lounge, she spoke up unexpectedly and asked, "Why do you care so much about helping people?" Elias leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Liane had carried animosity into their relationship, but as she made progress in rehabilitation, her interactions with Elias began to change. Now she treated Elias with cautious respect, and he never treated her like a burden or a trophy. She thought it was because she was too precious. As I observed my dad repairing old machines, I learned that nothing is ever truly beyond repair. Liane, with a subtle smile on her lips, asked, "So, what were your aspirations before the accident?" Elias chuckled and asked, "I was a warrior. My father expected nothing less of me. But I've always wanted more. Exploration, diplomacy, understanding other species. I wanted to show the galaxy that Reports from Xi Prime suggested that Baron Tyro was becoming increasingly impatient, and whispers among the Groan elite questioned his joke. "I want to demonstrate that we are not defined by our circumstances or by those who attempt to hold us down." Alias nodded, his admiration for her increasing with each word. "I believe you are already the Emperor's shadow, even though Lian has made progress." In a soft voice, Alias inquired. With an unwavering look, she locked eyes with him. "Now, they wanted to show that we are more than the things that happen to us, or the ones who attempt to bring us down." He made the decision to exile his daughter to a human care facility. Elias once told Lian, "I don't think you'll succeed, and if you do, he'll try to take credit." Lian's jaw tightened in response. A communication came from the facility's control room, saying, "A Groan ship has entered orbit, bearing the Tyro insignia. It seems he's come to check on his investment." Leon said this in a confrontational tone. Baron Tyro's presence was as oppressive as... Elias moved forward with a composed but resolute voice, and Tyr's eyes darted to him, his mouth quivering. "This person has given you grandiose illusions," Elias said. He spoke forward, saying, "I've been reconstructing myself something you never believed I could accomplish." Standing with the help of modern braces, Lien addressed his eyes without flinching. As he crept up to Lien, who was among the frail and broken, he scowled. "This is where you've been hiding." Meeting his stare without fear, Lien, supported by her advanced braces, kept her composure. "I've been putting myself back together," he said. "I've been putting myself back together." Lien's fists clenched, but she hid her anger from Tyro, who asked, "Why are you here to remind you of your place?" Tyro's voice betrayed his animosity. Elias intervened, his eyes blazing with respect. "You have no idea what you're doing when this farce fails," Lian said, her voice filled with scorn. The confrontation left Lian shaken, but it also reignited her determination. Over the following weeks, she threw herself into her therapy with renewed vigor, pushing herself past every limit Elias had set for her. Tyro appeared taken aback by Elias' defiance, but he soon recovered, sneering as he turned to leave. "When she fails, I will ensure the galaxy knows it was your incompetence that doomed her." Through it all, she had Elias's steadfast support, which gave her the will to keep going. On a particularly challenging day, while practicing walking without her braces, Leah managed to take a few steps without them. She tripped, but caught herself before falling. Her breath was labored, but her triumphant, "I did it," echoed through her whispers. Elias smiled, his own eyes sparkling as he said, "You did it." Their bond deepened as Lian's progressed, and their bond deepened through their shared laughter and tears. While sitting under the stars on the facility's observation deck one evening, Liang confessed, "You've changed me. Not just my body, but my perspective. You've shown me that I'm more than my father's expectations." Elias extended his hand to take hers, and she embraced the gesture. "You've changed me too, Liang. You've shown me what true strength looks like." As a result, Liang finally believed in a future beyond her father's shadow, a future in which she, with Elias Carter by her side, Lyri was able to shape her life according to her own terms. The weeks after Baron Tyr's visit were a whirlwind of progress, tension, and determination. Tyrock and Lyri pushed each other to her limits in therapy, driven by their shared goals of reclaiming her life and proving her father wrong. Dr. Carter worked tirelessly alongside her, honing the equipment and techniques that had previously produced remarkable results. Together they had created something truly remarkable, a remarkable partnership, formed on mutual respect, trust, and the common objective of overcoming obstacles. However, as Lian's self-assurance increased, so did the difficulties they faced. Tyr's shadow hung over their every triumph, his subtle threats serving as a continual reminder that their victories could be abruptly taken away. From behind the scenes, sabotage started subtly, with diagnostic equipment failing during crucial therapy sessions, causing Elias to halt progress and readjust the systems. Supplies, which were consistently available, mysteriously vanished, including the neurograph stimulators that were crucial to Leon's rehabilitation. Unusual occurrences started to manifest, leading Elias to suspect sabotage. The facility was highly secure, with only authorized personnel allowed access to sensitive areas. One night, while Elias was working late in the lab, Leon entered, her face pale and her movements stiff. She whispered, "Something is wrong. The stimulators aren't responding the way they used to." Elias scowled, pulling up her most recent data logs. His expression darkened as he studied the readings, realizing that these settings had been changed. Elias nodded glumly. "He doesn't want you to succeed." Leanne asked, her voice betraying her frustration. "After all, wasn't he the one who entrusted me to you?" Elias met her gaze, his expression serious. "Because he fears you will prove him wrong and reveal your true abilities to the galaxy, shattering the image he has built of himself. He has spent his life controlling others, but now that he can't control you, it terrifies him." She sighed. With Leon's fists clenched, they prepared to confront the sabotage head-on. After securing the facility, Elias and Leon restricted access to critical systems, instituted new security protocols, and recruited trusted staff to monitor for suspicious activity. However, they recognized that defense alone wasn't sufficient, so they decided to take the offensive. Elias reached out to Senator Tarks, a Groan official renowned for his progressive views and opposition to Tark's authoritarian tactics. The senator secretly met with them to discuss their progress and the possibility of publicly challenging Tyr's narrative. The meeting took place aboard the Silver Horizon, Elias's personal ship, which was docked at a remote station on the fringes of Groan space. Tarks, a wiry figure with piercing amber eyes, listened intently as Leon described her journey and the breakthroughs she and Elias had achieved. Leon stated her goal with conviction, but she needed your help to achieve it. Her father would do anything to put an end to the stigma surrounding disabilities in our culture. Elias nodded encouragingly, and Leon said, "We'll do it." The council chamber on Xi Prime resembled a grand amphitheater, with its crystalline walls reflecting the light of the stage. If Tyro was willing to publicly present his findings, they could hold him accountable. At the head of the chamber sat Baron Tyro, his expression icy and unreadable. Elias started the presentation by describing the cutting-edge equipment, neural graphs, and personalized therapy protocols that had helped Leon recover from his injuries. The room was filled with grown nobility, scientists and political leaders, all of whom had been invited to see the presentation. Eortha worried much for her husband. Leon's turn came next. She confidently stepped forward, her movements smooth and unflappable, as she addressed the assembly. "For years I was treated as a burden," she said, her voice strong and clear. "I was told I was broken and useless, but I stand before you today as proof that no one is beyond repair. With the right tools and support, we can overcome even the greatest challenges." She then looked to her father, Baron Tyro, her gaze unwavering. "Wanted to make fun of and exert control over me because of my handicap, but his brutality really helped me discover my inner strength and the support of others who believed in me." Amid the thunderous acclaim, Tyr's face became gloomy as he said, "This is a joke." Tyr stood up from his seat and continued, "You want us to believe that human, a creature of such little brain, did what we could not." Elias, in a measured but forceful manner, advanced. He emphasized that the key is not IQ or species, but rather empathy, resolve, and the courage to question long-held beliefs. The Council's decision to recognize Lian's accomplishments and fund the expansion of the Universal Rehabilitation Center was vindicated. Tyr's efforts to discredit her were met with scorn, and his influence diminished as a result of her triumph. As the session came to a close, Lian approached Elias, her rare smile lighting up her face. She said, "We did it." Elias shook his head and said, "You did it. I just helped you get there." They stood together on the council chamber balcony, watching the victory. After years of waiting, Lian felt free to live, dream, and create her own destiny as the twin suns dipped below the horizon. The twin suns of Xi Prime cast lengthy shadows across the enormous council plaza in Chapter 4 of A New Legacy. At the same time, Dr. Elias Carter and Liran Tyro began a new phase of their adventure. The day's events had shook Groan society to its very core. Silently furious, Baron Tyro withdrew from the council chamber after losing his uncontested power. In the meanwhile, an unstoppable wave of transformation had been set in motion by Lian's triumph. Be put out, but their efforts were far from finished. In the days after the council's decision, there was an overwhelming outpouring of support for Lian. Word of her recovery traveled across the galaxy, touching the lives of people who had been overlooked or shunned because of their injuries, disabilities, or societal expectations. Messages poured into the Universal Rehabilitation Center from all walks of life, with patients seeking treatment, grateful families expressing their gratitude, and supporters offering to help the center grow. Lian herself embraced the outpouring of support. Stepping out of her shadow and into a new role, she worked side by side with Elias to oversee the center's operations. She spoke at galactic forums and advocated for the integration of advanced rehabilitation technologies across allied systems. As they reviewed plans for a new facility on the moon of Alderaan, Lian turned to Elias and asked, "Did you ever think we'd come this far?" Elias smiled warmly and honestly said, "I knew you would. I just wasn't sure how long it would be." A smile spread across his face. Lian smirked, her confidence shining through as she confidently knew just what to say. Meanwhile, Baron Tyro, humiliated by his daughter's success and the decline in his influence, plotted his next move, seeking to undermine her legacy through clandestine and political means. Tyro's agents spread false rumors, accusing Elias of manipulating Lian's recovery with illegal human technology. Tyro lobbied for this move, but not everyone welcomed Lian and Elias's contributions. In a strategy meeting, Elias warned Lian, "You can try to bring us down, but he doesn't realize something important." "What's that?" you asked. "We're not alone anymore." Lian responded with a glint in her eye, insistent that this wasn't just about them. Corrupt officials had been secretly funding rogue factions that were opposed to interspecies cooperation, delaying the new rehabilitation center's funding. Elias, ever vigilant, had noticed the uptick in resistance and was determined not to let the matter go. An important turning point occurred during the Galactic Summit, when Lian and Elias began to forge alliances with powerful figures from across the galaxy. They collaborated closely with Senator Tarks, whose support for rehabilitation programs made him an invaluable ally, and they also established partnerships with human organizations, such as Earth's Galactic Medical Consortium, which supplied advanced neural and genetic technologies to supplement Groan's methods. In the bolder areas of U.S., on the neutral planet of Varanus, Lian delivered a stirring speech in honor of unity. She spent too much time describing how she went from shame to strength and pleading with leaders to put unity and compassion ahead of pride and division. Her words echoed throughout the expansive auditorium as she said, "We have let fear and prejudice govern our behavior for too long. The power is not in being dominant, but in standing together and we can rewrite our history to show this." The crowd went wild in their applause, and Lian's speech served as a call to action for transformation. A bold assault on the Alderaan facility at its grand opening was the climax of Tiro's attempts to undermine their work in the last clash. Before the facility could start operations, a saboteur broke into the site and set explosives in an effort to destroy it. But Lian and Elias had planned ahead, knowing that Tiro would be desperate. Her conviction touched Elias. Even though he had heard her talk ad nauseum, "You are a natural leader," he informed her. Following that, Lian smiled at him with an unusual sincerity. "I was fortunate to have an excellent educator," he informed her. He showed her how to bend her knees, held, and extended the crotch. The security teams managed to intercept the Abers just in time, disarming the charges and apprehending the culprits. Among them was one of Tyr's most trusted advisors. When the evidence was presented to the council, Ty's involvement became evident, leading to public outrage and the collapse of his remaining influence. As a result, he was stripped of his title and exiled from Zide Prime. A mixture of satisfaction and sorrow washed over Lian as she quietly said, "I never wanted to come to this." Elias then placed a He placed your hand on her shoulder, and he had every opportunity to change. Despite this, he made his choice. Lian nodded, her resolve unwavering, and now we can move forward into a new legacy. With Tiro's shadow finally lifted, Lian and Elias turned their attention to expanding their vision. The Universal Rehabilitation Network grew quickly, opening facilities all over the galaxy and transforming medical science. Their work inspired countless others to challenge societal norms and fight for inclusion and equality. Lian became a symbol of resilience and leadership, and her story is taught in schools. In 2017, Lian USA magazine called her the American Catholic Church, naming her the world's top saints. Elias, who has been widely recognized in art and literature, remained humble and quietly worked behind the scenes to develop new technologies. He mentored the next generation of healers. One evening, as they stood on the observation deck of the Alderaan facility, Lian looked at Elias with a thoughtful expression, asking, "Do you ever think about what's next?" Elias smiled and said, "I'm glad we are here. My heart is full too." They watched as the galaxy stretched out before them, a vast, endless expanse. A variety of possible results.